What is up? You're listening to a mid-September edition of the Splash Shack podcast. Today, I'm joined by Andrew, who has been on this podcast before. Really excited to have him on. We've been chatting a lot, especially given that basketball's back and what have you. So we're recording this the night before Game 7 of Nuggets Clippers, as well as the first game of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Celtics and the Heat. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Also, some of the stuff that we've seen, potential, just quick hits on maybe some of the coaching carousel, etc. So without further ado, I'm joined by Andrew. How you doing, dude?
I am doing great. I'm doing well. Just my team won the football team won yesterday. The Redskins, or I guess formerly called the Redskins, won yesterday. So I'm pumped. That has me excited.
Yeah, the football team is undefeated.
They're at the top of the division right now. 1-0. The Giants lost tonight.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The Giants Steelers game just wrapped up. But so I guess brought you on here to chat some hoops. So I guess right off the bat, you and I have talked a little bit about kind of what we hope for, or kind of what we're deep down rooting for when with respect to Game 7 of Denver versus the Clippers. I'm curious, what I guess I'll start by asking this. What do you think has been the key? Like, why is it that the Clippers continue to consistently blow leads when they have a guy like Kawhi on the roster and they have guys who, in theory, are, good defenders that you should trust in a playoff game and what have you?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. It's puzzling because, like you said, they're entering these close stretches in the second half with Kawhi and PG on the floor. So I think the reason this comes back to several keys. And the first one, which was always like kind of a concern dating back to preseason, was that the Clippers didn't really have a primary like ball handler or like an elite ball handler on the team, or passer for that matter. So as a result, sometimes the ball kind of sticks, the ball stops moving, often turns kind of stagnant and turns into like Kawhi isoing or PG Paul George isoing or Lou Will isoing. So once the ball stops moving, then the rest of the team gets out of rhythm. So as a result, that offense will continue to stagnate. And yeah, the defense has also been kind of concerning. I think while Kawhi and PG are both elite defenders, they do have some defensive liabilities such as Lou Will and Harrell off the bench.
Yep.
Yeah, Harrell has just not been great at all in the bubble. He still just hasn't found his footing yet. Jokic is definitely beating him down low. So yeah, that's another area of concern. And this happened like not even this series. This happened that game 4 against the Mavericks in the first round, where I think they had like a 21-point lead in the first half, and then it just kind of evaporated in the third quarter. And what was weird about that instance was like Doc Rivers just didn't even call a timeout. He just told his guys like, yeah, just play through it. So I think just the fact that the offense gets stagnant, the fact that Doc's rotations have been a little questionable. I think those are really the key reasons why, because otherwise it is really puzzling, and the Clippers need to get that figured out before they lose the lead again in Game 7.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely with you with respect to essentially all the points that you just made. I'm curious if you're Doc Rivers, like in Game 7, what do you do about Harrell's minutes? Because he's been, let's call it how it is. He's been pretty bad this series. Essentially, he gets attacked on the defensive end every single possession that he's on, and they're getting outscored. The Clippers are getting outscored when he's on the floor. So, but at the same time, you're used to playing him, quality minutes. He's quality, he's obviously a notable part of your rotation, sixth man of the year. So, like, if you're Doc Rivers in Game 7, what do you do about Harrell?
So if I were Doc Rivers, I mean, first of all, this is Game 7. You gotta forget about what you did in the past couple games, what you did this season. Right now, your season's on the lines, win or go home. So you think you just gotta go with short-term plans. So what I mean by that is you might want to give a guy like JaMychal Green more minutes than Harrell, because um, Green doesn't have the same upside that Harrell has, but what he can do is he can stretch the floor, and he's quicker than Harrell, so he can kind of keep up with Jokic more, and he could also at least uh I don't want to say contain because Jokic can't be contained in the series, but at least kind of slow him down when Jokic is trying to attack from the top of the key. So that's the key. Just give more of Harrell's minutes to Michael Green, and reduce Harrell's playing time because, like I said, you gotta go short term thinking here and win the game 7.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would definitely cut his minutes a little bit. Even maybe a sizable portion, maybe play him in shorter spurts per se. But um, I guess you bring up a good point about how right now it seems like their best option with regards to guarding like a big man, like an all-star big man, like a Jokic. Right now, it seems like JaMychal Green is kind of their best Zubac slash JaMychal Green. So if the Clippers win, I feel like that's a valid reason to be concerned about them going up against the Lakers. Am I fair in thinking that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Anthony Davis is looking at Zubac, Harrow, and Green. He's just looking at his chops right now. There's there's no one who can stop AD when he's playing as well as he is right now. And the Clippers don't have any personnel who can really slow him down.
Yeah, and so I want to actually I want to take this back to Denver. So, what is it about Denver that just they seem to have a knack for kind of play? I don't know, like playing well when their backs are against the wall, so to speak. What is it? And especially, it's been especially evident in the bubble, right? They have that game 1 overtime win against the Jazz when Donovan Mitchell has 57. And then obviously they go down 3-1 and then they win 3 straight. What is it about what is it about the Nuggets? Because there were times when I watched the Nuggets in the bubble and thought, okay, they're dead in the water, but obviously that's not the case.
So the Nuggets, with their propensity of coming back or playing well when they're down like 3-1, it kind of reminds me of when like I'm at school, I got an assignment due the next day. I procrastinated like until night before it's due. So because like that kind of pressure like lights a fire under your ass. So as a result, you kind of like you kind of like do your work more carefreely. You don't spend your time thinking. You just like do it. I guess
Sure.
that's kind of what's happening to the Nuggets. I guess like they're not overthinking their schemes. They're not overthinking their plays. They're just kind of like playing freely, just kind of like during under pressure aside, just taking it one game at a time. So I don't know. I feel like that's the most like that's the best analogy I could come up with here.
Yeah, I like that. I like that analogy. Definitely can say I've felt that. I've been in that situation before. But one thing that I think is interesting is in the game 4 loss. That was when there were the controversial Michael Porter Jr. post game comments, right? And
Right.
it seems like after he got that, so a little bit of that criticism, and I think rightfully so. It, it it seems to me like he's been a little more engaged on kind of the team agenda, and on top of that, I'm sure that there were some other, I'm sure that when Jamal Murray and Jokic hear those comments, I'm sure they kind of maybe start to subconsciously think like, hey, let's in the final 2 minutes, we're going to be the ones to take the shots during the game. Let's try to get everyone in the flow in case we need them, you know, in crunch time. So I definitely think that might have played a factor. And going back to Michael Porter Jr., he's played pretty well. Like it's one thing when you make those comments and then you crap your pants the next game, right? But he's
Right.
played pretty well. So I have to give kudos to him for kind of helping them stay alive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not just offensively where he's been making shots, but I remember in game 5 down the stretch, he made that big block on Zubac. And in
Yep.
game, I mean, he's going to get targeted on defense. That's not a question, but I mean, as long as he's battling, like I think Malone's fine with that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, credit to him, right? Like he's young, so I never want to just say, you know, pretend like he's a finished product, but to his credit, I'm seeing positive signs in the right direction on the defensive end. Where first and foremost, a good start is that he's actually like trying and trying to and playing with effort on that, and that's a start. And then obviously you alluded to the block. That's just one moment where they were targeting him, and he was obviously going up against the guy who's bigger and stronger, but managed to meet him at the rim. So I think there's some encouraging signs um, for MPJ for sure.
So, what's your pick? What's your pick for tomorrow?
Gosh, um, so I think you probably agree with me. I am like rooting for the Nuggets, but if the Clippers win, I won't be upset because then we get the very anticipated Clippers versus Lakers. But okay, honestly, if I had to bet, I'd probably go with the Clippers. What about you?
Yeah, so I am see like I was really tempted to pick Nuggets here because like for some this Nuggets team kind of gives me that 2019 Washington Nationals kind of vibes where it's like they're just making these comebacks are playing well when their backs are against the wall and there's they just have momentum on their side. I guess that entire comeback, but like at the same time, the Clippers have Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, um, what else can I say? He's a superstar. He's made for those moments. You know when he's sometimes like when the play slows down, you just give it to him. He just does his magic. So I can't I just can't underestimate Kawhi. I think if you were to put a gun to my head, I'd play the Clippers take Game 7.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely think like it's hard to pick against Kawhi, and yeah, I mean it's hard to pick against Kawhi in a game seven. I'm getting flashbacks to 2018 or sorry 2019, so last year against the Sixers, where that game was an absolute slugfest. But he kind of he didn't have an efficient night, but he definitely did enough to keep them in a position to obviously win, and then he obviously hits that final shot. Um, yeah, I will say this: whatever happens, all I hope is that it's a close and interesting game.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Speaking of close and interesting games and game sevens, obviously we've seen 3 game 7s so far, all of which have been close and interesting. Though some of them have been a little bit ugly, but um, which of the game 7s did you like? If you could only, I'll put it this way: if if say like 10 years from now, which is the game 7 that you're going to be telling stories about? If you only could talk about one of the ones, and I'm saying only of the 3 that we've seen so far, obviously.
Yeah, so the three ones were just to refresh your memory. It was the Jazz Nuggets Game 7,
Hmm.
uh, the Thunder Rockets Game 7, then there was Celtics Raptors from the last round.
Yep.
So I would not say Celtics Raptors. That game was fine, but there weren't that many like really memorable moments. Oh, I mean Smart chase on block, but
That
otherwise
was
like
yeah, that was nice.
otherwise still like not that many like memorable moments there. It was close though. Jazz Nuggets very low scoring. Can't forget that Conley near make. That was going in and out. That was brutal.
Yeah.
And then the finish at that was pretty crazy. But I mean, other than that, the whole game was just like ugly, like low scoring, like kind of bad offense really. And then so if I were to, I would probably say Thunder Rockets because you know Lou Dortz, who was the Rockets were kept leaving open the entire series. He made 6 threes. Like
Yeah.
he might have been the best player for the Thunder on the floor that game. I think that's like it's really reasonable to say that. And it was kind of back and forth the whole game. Um, I was rooting for the Thunder. I really thought I thought that the game was close. So that's what the Thunder won. But then that last possession, they just couldn't get executed. And the Rockets kind of gave him one last chance, and Covington missed that free throw. But yeah, that's all she wrote for the Thunder. So I would probably choose that game 7.
Yeah, it's ironic, right? Because I think Thunder Rockets as a game, it had the most moments that you'll remember, and it was also like was like a decently played game, like in terms of execution until the final, until like ironically the final possession or so with this is obviously well documented, but just that final inbounds play that OKC had, but I definitely that's definitely one that I'll remember just because like you said, there's the Lou Dort factor, there's just a lot of kind of back and forth. Like it was, Thunder up 2 tie game, Rockets up 2 tie game, that sort of thing. The Harden block, and then obviously I guess there was like the technical free throw, and then there was suspense with that. But speaking so speaking of the Rockets though, so Mike D'Antoni left as a he was kind of a lame duck coach this past season. It's not really a surprise to anyone. My first question to you is: do you think Daryl Morey is going to still be the GM next season, whenever next season starts?
Man, so yeah, the I want to say the struggles between the owner and the management have been pretty well documented. There's been a
Yep.
lot of rumblings from Houston. Daryl Morey wants to continue building his team, just trying to take chances. But Tillman Fertitta, he's been trying to cut costs, trying to duck the luxury tax. So yeah, their philosophies are kind of conflicting, and there's been rumors about Fertitta saying, if you guys don't win this team this year, like your ass is canned. So I don't know. I don't feel comfortable saying Murray's going to stay. I feel like just given what Fertitta has done so far, which is a lot of just it's mostly bad, nothing really good. I think Moore is gone. I think I know more. Like I know right now D'Antoni left, but like if 3 months from now when the season's about close to starting, I wouldn't be surprised if Moore is not no longer GM. That's my take.
Yeah. So I just Googled Daryl Morey, and according to Slam Online and the Dream Shake, which is the SB Nation Rockets blog, it says that there's a report that says Daryl Morey will be, quote, under review by Rockets owner. So that doesn't sound good.
Doesn't sound good at all.
Does not sound good. I guess I'm primarily with you. I think you and I both agree. Like it seems like there's definitely a disconnect between the ownership and everyone, and management, and obviously D'Antoni, etc. And I think one thing that Jalen Rose always points out that I think is a pretty good tidbit of information is you always should keep your eye out when essentially whoever brought you into an organization, like whoever brought you into a certain job, whenever they leave, you kind of have to watch your back and think like, am I next? Right? Like if a GM hires a coach and the GM gets fired, what's the next GM that comes in going to do? Unless you have an exceptional coach, that GM's probably going to fire you and then get his own coach. Same deal with ownership. So I think that's definitely a bad omen for Morey.
Right. Yeah. That kind of stuff happens in the NFL too, where like once you get a new GM, he wants everything done his way, so he kind of remakes the coaching staff. And same thing with the owner. The owners, uh, they want to do stuff their way. So
Yeah, I think honestly, quite frankly, it's fairly common in business, in any type of business. But I guess while we're on the topic of meetings and so forth, I saw earlier today that Giannis had a 3-hour lunch meeting with who was it? Is it the
Mark
Edens?
Lasry,
Mark Lasry. That's right, Mark
yeah,
Lasry. So it seemed like it didn't go any one direction. Like it was like the ownership saying we're willing to spend into the luxury tax, etc. And it didn't sound like Giannis was saying get me out of here. So I guess my question to you is: do you think that if Giannis sticks around for another year, can the Bucks get him the supporting cast that he needs, given that they don't have too much flexibility? And obviously, they made a key decision that you've been critical of, and I think rightfully so, where they essentially chose Bledsoe over Brogdon.
Yeah, so the Bucks have a big offseason in front of them, definitely. Because they gotta offer Giannis the supermax, and he's gotta make a decision on that. And regardless, you got they're in win now mode. They gotta, they look at what happened in the bubble, and it's pretty clear that this core is just it's flawed. It's not he's not gonna win. I don't think he's gonna win a championship with Chris Middleton as a second option, Eric Bledsoe as his point guard. And I think in that regard, you gotta make an upgrade. So I heard Chris Paul is being rumored
Yep.
in a trade to the Bucks. I think they could build a pretty reasonable package for him. Uh, because I mean, while Chris Paul is he's going to turn 36, he's got injury issues. You're paying $40 million a year. It's a worthwhile risk because um, I feel like what Giannis kind of needs is a point guard who can take some pressure off of him and like kind of run the offense and can shoot and just be a floor general um and also play good defense too. And Bledsoe's just not getting a job done. Just every postseason is just his offense just completely goes haywire. He can't shoot the ball at all. He makes bad decisions on offense. They
Yeah.
need to upgrade the point guard position uh, absolutely this offseason.
Yeah. So in a package for Chris Paul, would that package include Chris Middleton?
No, no, they should not include Middleton in there because you still. I think best package you can come up with is Bledsoe, um, plus Ilyasova, who's gonna earn $7 million a year next season. Robin Lopez, who's he has a player option for $5 million, I believe. He'll probably take it, and then you throw like additional salary there, DJ Wilson, I'm guessing, and then their first round pick from Indiana. So that's a package I've heard so far. The Rockets might also after DiVincenzo, so they gotta consider that possibility. But yeah, any package that they send to Chris Paul, it doesn't have to involve Middleton. They should still keep him. He'll be a fine dirt option behind Giannis and CP3.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm actually on the trade machine right now. Um, I think if you're gonna do Bledsoe, Ilyasova, and then Robin Lopez, I think let me just quickly check. Yeah, I think realistically to make to make the salaries work, I think you're gonna have to toss in George Hill, which if I'm Milwaukee, I do like I do in a heartbeat. But okay, yeah, no, I'm on the trade machine right now, and it looks like you can make it work if you toss in George Hill. So oh, wait, let me. So it's George Hill, Eric Bledsoe, Ilyasova, Robin Lopez, DiVincenzo for Chris Paul, and then obviously you can toss in like small salaries and picks.
Yeah, I think the Bucks feel uncomfortable giving DiVincenzo, but if that's whatever it takes to get CP3, I feel like yeah, their depth is going to be pretty kind of compromised, but like I mean, you got to take a chance, I guess.
Yeah, or I guess if you don't want to give up DiVincenzo, because you could toss in DJ Wilson.
Jay Wilson, yeah.
Yeah, young asset. You know, not making like on a rookie contract, so that kind of works. Yeah, it's crazy to me how Chris Paul, Mike. I mean, like Chris Paul, a year ago, people thought, oh, that's an untradeable contract, and now, quite frankly, I think it's he in some offers he'll command like first round picks, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about because you know the Rockets traded him in two first and two pick swaps for Russell Westbrook,
Yeah,
and then now if you ask GMs like who has a higher trade value, CP3 or Russ,
Uh,
I mean,
yeah, that's
think
easy.
about it. Like,
Yeah, I'm with you. Like if when it comes down, I'm pretty sure. I mean, Chris Paul's deal, it's shorter than Russ's, right? Or is it?
he has
It's shorter and it's less per year, if I recall correctly, because Russ had like a super max and he also won MVP.
yeah. So after this season ends, CP3 has 2 years left on his deal, and Russell Westbrook has 3 years. So yeah,
Three.
CP3 does have a shorter deal.
Wow. Yeah, you just never know in the NBA.
Yep.
Is what I've learned. So I want to wrap this up soon, but we barely talked about the Eastern Conference playoffs, and so I want to get your quick take. What's your general feel for? I'll ask you two questions. What's your kind of general feel and prediction for how you kind of foresee the series going? And then what do you think is the key matchup between two guys that you think will essentially dictate how the series goes?
Yeah. So this Eastern Conference Final Series is going to be pretty intriguing. I think it's going to be a defensive slugfest between two good defenses that can that play at a half court pace on offense. So my initial feeling is that the Heat have better depth. Their big rotation is better than Boston's. The Celtics primary shot creators. So the Celtics best players and the Heat's best players. The Celtics best players are more adept at creating their own shots from the perimeter. So what I'm basically saying is the Celtics best players can shoot. Jimmy Butler and Beyond Adebayo are not great shooters, and the return of Gordon Hayward is a big X factor here. But I'm more skeptical that he's going to return. I feel like if he is going to return, he might be after Game 4, Game 3 at the earliest because he's working back from the grade 3 ankle sprain.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I think my initial pick from now is going to be Boston in 7 games because I kind of just like their high end shot creation talent more. Um, I think they're I think Brad Stevens is he's Brad Stevens and Expulsion is a great chess match. So Stevens is unlike Coach Budenholzer the last series, Coach Brad Stevens is going to make a lot more adjustments. He's gonna keep making adjustments to his scheme. He's gonna he might play drop coverage. He might switch. He's gonna mix it up. So I think because of that factor and what I mentioned before, I got Celtics taking this in 7 games in a very physical, another very grueling series for them.
Yeah. That
Oh, you also asked me about the matchup, right? I forgot
yeah.
to answer that. So, uh, I think from the top of my head, the match I'm looking forward to is, I mean, I guess it's pretty simple. It's Jimmy Butler versus Jason Tatum
Jason Tatum.
because,
Yep.
um, those two will probably match up to one another. Uh, yeah, it's because both of these guys are great defenders. Jimmy Butler is a better slasher. Jason Tatum's a better scorer. So yeah, it's going to be interesting because I feel like they might just lock each other down, just offset one another.
Yeah. That's definitely the matchup I'm really excited to see. But one thing that I think is a little underrated is I'm honestly really curious to see essentially who Marcus Smart guards and if he can essentially does Brad Stevens try to have Marcus Smart try to try to um, lessen the impact of Goran Dragic, who has played really well in the playoffs. It seems like in the games where they're rolling, it starts. It's not that it starts with him, but a lot. Usually there. I'd say there's a pretty. It's pretty correlated when he plays well, the Heat kind of roll. So I'm curious to see, are they going to throw Marcus Smart on Dragic, or are they going to maybe they'll throw Smart at the end of the day. Smart can guard like 4 positions, so like maybe they'll throw Smart on Tatum or not Tatum, Butler for a little bit. Who's going to guard Miami's shooters, and who's Kemba going to guard? Those are, I guess, some of the more, I guess, like matchup things that I'm curious to see.
Yeah. So you mentioned Marcus Smart, and I think, at least in terms of starting lineups, I think this is how it will match up. So Marcus Smart should guard Goran Dragic because, like you said, Goran Dragic has played great for the Heat this playoffs, and you know they need someone who can kind of chase Dragic around those screens. Um, yeah, so they got need someone to guard Duncan Robinson, make sure he doesn't get open. I think Jalen Brown could fit that. I think he's a good defender. Tatum guarding Butler, mentioned that already. Adebayo and Tyus are going to match up against one another. So I think, I think the Celtics are probably going to high Kemba on Crowder, or like I guess they're like biggest non-threats. So like if Iguodala came, I think Kemba would guard him just because Iguodala is not a threat from
From the
distance.
pro. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's it. That's just so weird. I'm picturing that in my head, and it's just weird thinking like Kemba's he's a small guy, and Iguodala's Iguodala. But no, I understand what you're saying though. Like they're not too worried about Iguodala on the killing them on the offensive end.
right.
Yeah. I I I really could see this going either way. I hope it's a good series, for sure. And guess we'll see if Gordon Hayward comes back. Also, obviously, I had to say this, but I hope my dude Tyler Hero just has a couple games where he's an absolute flamethrower.
Yeah, if there's one thing that I've taken away from this kid, he's not afraid of the moment.
I,
He's gonna take shots in the clutch. Like
yeah. I don't. I mean, honestly, maybe this is like it starts from the top down, but I feel like nobody on the Heat's really like. I feel like everyone on the Heat's kind of like a lot. The Heat rotation's kind of like that, like Jimmy Butler. Obviously, his shooting percentages weren't great. Like I'm talking like from distance in the regular season, but like now he's like absolutely cooking. So you see a similar thing with Dragic, and then obviously like Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, those dudes. You give them like an inch of space, and they're firing that thing up. And Crowder
yeah,
too. Crowder's been like absolutely. I saw that like I think like 80 or 90% of his shots in the postseason have been from three, and he's hitting them at a good clip.
he is. And there's something else I want to touch on, which is like Crowder is shooting phenomenal right now. But let's not forget that in Memphis he shot under 30%. So at some point you gotta wonder, is his shooting going to fall off? Like, I mean, he can't shoot this well for like entire playoffs, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're Celtics, you got to wonder that to yourself.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Like he's obviously right now he's like probably the hottest he's been like ever. So, but yeah, I mean like can if he can be like like a 40+% 3-point shooter, which like obviously that's not what his historically what his averages suggest, but like I think that's like not crazy given how well Miami's been playing.
Yeah, I think Crowder's just like they basically tell him like just go standard, just like hit open threes, and it's his roles reduced, so that kind of makes it easier on him too.
Yeah. So definitely really excited to see that series as well as obviously Game 7 to tomorrow. So yeah, so we've been chatting about half an hour, so I think that's a good stopping point. Thanks for joining me today, Andrew.
Yeah, for sure. Did you give your pick yet, by the way, for the series?
Oh, so I guess we can end with that. I I mean, I'm biased as shit on this one because I just never root for the Celtics, but I'm gonna go Miami in 7.
All right.
So we'll see which one of us is on the money with that, but yeah. So to think that's a good place to wrap up. So to everyone listening, thank you for listening, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe on whatever medium you're listening to, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, or YouTube. And once again, thanks Andrew for joining me today.
For sure. Take care, man.